All right, very good. How y'all doing out there? Dave Duford here, Final Expense Agent Mentor, getting the ball rolling on another fantastic final expense training session. Hope you guys are doing well out there. Had a profitable week and are raring and ready to go for today's training session. Just finishing up lunch here. Got the old turkey and sweet potato and looking to get rolling here on today's awesome training. So, like I talked about in my promo, what we're going to talk about today is all things final expense leads. The purpose of this training is really to give a 30,000 foot overview on what the most popular common kinds of final expense leads are, and to help you make a determination as to what kind of leads will work best for your business. As we know, as hopefully you do, if you're new, then you won't. But as you will find out, this business is all about seeing the people. Final expense is primarily a purchase lead business, and we really don't do a ton of cold prospecting. And as any agent will attest to you over time, the number one priority and concern is always having enough leads on a consistent basis. And so let's go ahead and jump in. So what we're going to talk about first are what I would consider to be the bread and butter ways that most agents talk or most agents write and use final expense leads. We're going to get into some more, how do you say, esoteric, I don't know if that's the right word, but less common type of leads that may or may not be good for you as well. Again, this is just an overall type of introduction to final expense leads to help you get more understanding. Now, if you guys have questions, go ahead and leave them in the Facebook comment box at the very bottom down here. I will try my best to answer them as we go through. As we found out last week, and as I am reminded every time I do these, I'm still learning this whole Facebook thing. So if I don't, for some reason, answer your question, I will turn that into an entire or at least partial content for next week's Friday final expense training session. So let's get started. So when I sit down with agents who are new to this business, the thing that I'm most concerned with is getting them into a lead program and selling final expense that actually is proven to work. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to find out what works and dial into it, because this, like many other businesses, is old. It's a business that's been around. Final expense has been around for a long time, and there's been a ton of people that have passed through this business, tried and tested all sorts of things, and there is a few, how can you say, top programs for lead generation to just follow. The great thing about final expense is you don't need to go out there and experiment with different lead programs, risking thousands and thousands of dollars on an unproven concept, because the concepts that we all use have been proven. And all you have to do is just simply have the discipline and the humility too to follow what's been proven. So what is the top way to generate leads? So I'm going to show you right now. I have prepared ahead in advance here for this particular call. I'm going to try to do my best to get it up here. This is, of course, a final expense direct mail lead. You can see exactly as the camera focuses here what I'm talking about. Final expense direct mail leads is the king of direct mail or final expense lead generation. I would imagine, I have no formal surveys showing this, but if you would look at the top producers in this business, and I would say these would be the top 10% producers, 90% of those top 10%, so we're talking 9 out of 10 of the top 10, all do direct mail final expense leads. Now, they may not do the exact lead I just showed you. They may do some kind of variation, but the thing is they get these kind of leads that go through the mail and are returned somehow every single week. And there's not much variation behind it. It's the same thing week after week, rinse and repeat. Now, what I want to talk about these direct mails is there's really two different kinds, in my opinion, or two designations of direct mail leads that are out there. So I'm going to show you this lead again that I just put up to the screen. And I want to take you through some of the places where I circled it. So we'll let it get focused here. Hopefully you guys can see it. best as we can. But if you look up, wrong side. If you look over here, kind of to, this side where my finger is, the line there on the screen says you may qualify for a state-regulated life insurance program. And if you look at the bottom, well, actually it doesn't have it on there. But the main point with this particular lead, again, I'm sorry if you can't read it. I'm going to leave a link in my video at the end with all of this information that you can research on your own. But the main thing about this lead is this is what I would call a specific lead, or a lead that says life insurance. That may sound strange to you new guys out there looking into final expense, because a lot of leads, believe it or not, don't even necessarily say final expense. Or sorry, they don't even say life insurance on them. They may say final expense instead, like state-regulated final expense program. They may say something altogether entirely different. They may not even say anything at all. And the reason I think it's important to designate this is I'll explain in a minute. I think that the more specific the card, the better chances that you're going to get a better quality lead. And not always. Again, I'll explain that in a second, because now what I'm going to show you is what I call the vanilla card. So I'm going to hold this up to the screen, checking it out here in my side second monitor, letting this thing try to get focused. And where, again, if you focus where it says it's circled, you're going to see you may qualify for a state-regulated program to pay for your final expenses. There's no mention of life insurance on this particular card. And so what happens is this particular card, because it's less specific, you get a lot more response out of it. But what I've found, and many other agents as well, is that the response isn't necessarily as high a quality. You get a lot of people thinking, hey, state-regulated program. Wow, to pay for it, even if I've been turned down before, it pays 100% of final expenses. They think it's free. They think it's a new-fangled government program to give them more free stuff. And you got to get over that. Many times these are just deadbeats, let's face it, and they don't want to pay or can't pay for anything anyway. With all that said, at the end of the day, I think that either one of these cards works. We have plenty of success with different agents and different backgrounds who do just fine doing these kind of leads. What you have to figure out is what works best for you. I've done both extensively in my career, and 9 out of 10 times I prefer, as an experienced agent, a lead that actually says life insurance on it. It just seems that the people we see get it a little bit more. Whereas with the other, yeah, you get a lot of response, but a lot of it's garbage anyway. And the good ones that responded off of the vanilla cards would have responded to the other cards most likely anyhow. So for me, when I train a new agent, I want them on a card that says life insurance. That's a requirement for me. I'm pretty passionate about that. If you have experience otherwise and you do fine with a vanilla card, totally fine. I'm not going to argue with results. You can't. You're making money and you're doing well. Keep doing it. Even if the card doesn't even say anything about life insurance, I don't care. As long as it's getting you results is the only concern anybody should ever be concerned about. But when we start any new business, we want the odds levied in our favor. And I think the specificity of a card that says life insurance always will outweigh that which is not or doesn't say life insurance. So that's direct mail here. Let's talk about avatar or telemarketing leads. So as you guys know, I do avatar leads, which are a telemarketing lead. And as the name implies, avatar telemarketing leads, you call over the phone, and the lead is generated in the process of prospecting and talking to a person. There's many different variations of telemarketing leads. One is which is the avatar leads I'm going to talk about here in just a second. But you also have live telemarketers. They could be, the subset of that is they could be American speaking or American based. They could be foreign based, most likely the Philippines. You also have press one or robocall leads that for some reason are just still out there and still sold, even though they're completely 100% illegal. I'll talk about that more in a second. But the whole premise of doing any kind of telemarketing lead is that we just call somebody over the phone and pick the phone up. The pros usually to a telemarketing lead is that they're a lot less expensive. You don't have to spend nearly as much on a direct mail lead as you would a telemarketing lead, because it usually costs less to generate, especially if you find ways to not necessarily hire somebody onshore, or I should say an American caller. If you can find a good system that's not based in the U.S. to generate your leads, you can drive your costs down a lot more. But the cons to telemarketing is that you're working with probably 15 to 20% of the callable population. I'm sorry, 15 to 20% of the population. The reason is the proliferation of the do not call list. It's a reality. Anybody who's doing any cold calling, it's very wise that you follow the rules, because if you don't, you can be in big trouble. And so what that leaves us with is a very small portion of the population, and that requires us to expand our area. And when you compare it to direct mail, you can hit a medium-sized or a small-sized town, stay busy, whereas if you telemarketed there, you may get a couple leads, and then you've got to go to the next town. So you got to cover a large area in order to make it successful. So with all that said, there are some agents that do well at final expense telemarketing leads, and what I'm going to show you here is a sample of some leads I developed for myself called Avatar Final Expense Leads. Some of you guys may know that I do sell these leads to agents and non-agents, but I wanted to show you kind of an example of what one of these looks like. So I'm going to, again, try my best to get this here on the screen. Bear with me here. But you can see, hopefully, the date at which they were generated back in July. I included their name. I'm hiding their phone number and last name for obvious reasons. But then you've got a city, state, county, zip code, and age. And what's cool with the avatar leads that I offer to agents is we get their age, we get the coverage amount they desire, as well as the beneficiary, who's it for, who the insurance is going to be for, as well as the hobby or color, their favorite hobby or favorite color. If any of you guys listen to this, use any kind of telemarketing leads, you know that you need hooks in order to get in the door. Telemarketing generally is a little tougher to work versus direct mail leads, because you're catching people off guard when you generate the lead. And so what happens is they may be cooking, they may be watching Jerry Springer, and the last thing they're thinking about is, how am I going to get buried? And so they may have agreed to it all with their retention halfway there. So when you call them back, you need these hooks to help kind of get in the door. And the hobby, the beneficiary, face amount, different agents feel different ones are better for them. But the reason I do this and I offer this is it gives more opportunity to convert more appointments. Because as we all know, those who are experienced in this business, more appointments equal more sales. So moving on from here, I mentioned earlier, what's it called? Press 1 and voicemail leads. I will tell you from firsthand experience, these leads, no matter what the vendor says, is completely and 100% illegal. Bad for you. They're great leads. They work excellent. But firsthand experience and really rules of law show that any kind of press 1 and robocalling leads that you do is leaving you open to litigation. I'm not a lawyer. I know enough about the law to know that you cannot dial a person's number, even on a do not call list, and make that like a legal lead generation aspect. So the thing in this business is you got to be safe. And again, telling you from personal experience, selling insurance is not a right. It's a privilege. Our licenses are at the mercy of the Department of Insurance. If we break laws, if we do things unethically, we're putting our privilege at risk. And we may not have that privilege to make a living. And so it's best to operate in a manner in which protects that privilege as best as possible. And that means stay away from the stuff, the questionable lead generation. Robocalls, press 1s have all been shown to be completely illegal, even though for some reason it's still out there. And there's people who claim the leads, they're legal press 1s. There's no such thing. They claim it, but then at the end of the day, they're generating it. I can't prove it per se, but I've been around long enough to know that's what these people do. So I would just, hopefully you get why I say avoid press 1 and voicemail leads. It's just usually not the best course of action, as you can imagine. Okay, so we've covered direct mail. We've covered telemarketing leads. By the way, my favorite lead telemarketing-wise is either avatar leads, or if you can hire your own appointment setter or lead generator, and you can get somebody who's really good and train them how to do it, that's really the best. That's better than anything else. It's just hard to do that, to go out there, train them, find them. Most telemarketers burn out in 3 to 6 months. It's a tough job, and you got to keep the process going, and a lot of people just don't want to do that. So, but it is good if you can find somebody who loves calling random people. There are some that are sick and twisted like that actually enjoy the process. So I guess the last lead program I'll talk about is free lead generation. This is where you wouldn't do a normal lead generation type of program where you buy leads, you go out there and go to a vendor, buy leads, just the typical way I've described. This is where you would generate your own leads. Of course, there's cold calling and there's door knocking over the phone, in person. It all works to some extent, but nobody really truly keeps up with it because it is a grind. Again, it's like telemarketing. It's a sick, twisted thing to want to go out there and knock on 20, 30 doors a day without any sort of prior permission, I guess. So a lot of people have a head problem with it. I'm one of them. I could never do it. I tried, I just couldn't do it. So my point in mentioning that is that, you can do that. My recommendation, if you have that type of personality, more power to you, man. It takes a lot of brass balls, might as well say it, to go out there and do that daily. My recommendation is to do 30 doors a day. If you can hit 30 doors a day, you can sell a policy today. I mean, there's all sorts of people out there who need this stuff, and you're bound to find somebody. It's perfect timing. Cold calling, not really sure. Dial all day. You can set appointments off of cold calls. I did it for a time period, but again, it was just it's actually boring, believe it or not, to sit on a dialer, call 3 lines at a time, talk to people, get hung up. It's really boring. I remember it specifically. I was not as terrifying as I thought. It was more boring than anything. So now that with the cold marketing out of the way, if I have an agent who just doesn't have money for leads, excuse me, wants to do lead generation of some kind but doesn't have the money, I like to put them on seminar marketing. Seminar marketing is where we go to captive audiences of seniors and talk about final expense options. It's not so much a seminar as it is a talk. We do some things to elicit more lead generation, to get more interest up. I did 80 of these last year. I think I did 60, and I wrote 80 to 100 policies, somewhere in there, off of just free lead generation. So I have agents right now. I had a guy and I think Bronson's on here. He did 2,000, I think is what he told me last week. I've had agents write 3,000, 4,000 off of these seminars. They didn't spend but a couple of bucks. I mean, like $20, $30 for that kind of money. It's really good. And so the way I teach it is I show them the captive audiences, where they are, how to approach them, how to set it up. And there's lots of them all over the place. It's one of those things I've been asked, how do you do it, Dave? One of the things I keep personally is a mentorship thing only. So you got to work with me to get the seminars. But I really think it's huge. I mean, in fact, as a recruiter or somebody who's building my agency, I'm really positioning a whole recruitment approach to this business based off of it. That's how powerful I think it is. I think agents can make $75,000 to $100,000 a year doing this particular marketing method only. It's that good, and a lot of people like that. And you don't have to spend a dime on leads. I got a guy up in Idaho, in fact, he's writing 20, 25 pieces of business a month in Idaho just with this method. He hates buying leads. It's just something in his head he just doesn't like. So that is pretty much it for the final expense leads 30,000 foot view. If you have any questions, I'm going to try to figure out how to get to my Facebook page here, so just bear with me. You should still be there, hopefully. And I'm going to see if anybody's left any comments. If not, no problem. If you're listening to this still, you're more than welcome to leave any comments or questions you may have about things. So yeah, absolutely. So that's it for me. Looks like comment-wise, we're pretty much wrapped up here. If you have any questions or concerns, if you think of something that didn't pop up, leave them in this comment box right down here at the bottom. I will get them, respond to them directly, and most likely turn that comment into a actual video next week, Friday. So thank you so much for listening. Again, every Friday on Facebook, at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific, I do the No BS Final Expense Training Show with me, Dave, where I show you all things final expense and give you lots of free information and helpful tips to learn this business and do better at it. So we'll see you next week. I'll have some cool, interesting final expense related topics to talk about. And I want to thank you so much for watching. Y'all take care. Thanks a lot.